AITA for kicking my wife out after she punched my mom in the face. Things got even tougher for me in just a week, and I'm feeling lost. I'm wondering if I did something wrong. It's frustrating because everything's a mess right now. My wife and I have been together for 8 years, and we had our first baby 2 months ago. Before she was pregnant, my mom really liked her, but something changed after the pregnancy. My mom started acting distant from my wife and being overly attached to me. She even told people she wasn't happy about the baby. When my wife was 7 months pregnant, I told my mom I might stop talking to her if she didn't change. She got better after that and stopped making hurtful comments, but she's still too clingy to me. Just a week ago, my mom's sister, her husband, and their 12-year-old daughter came over for dinner. I cooked the meal. Before my wife could eat, our baby got fussy, so she went to feed and put her to bed. I thought I made enough food, but my niece was still hungry. She's grown a lot since I last saw her and had put on weight. I didn't make extra portions for her, so that was my mistake. I said sorry and offered her some crackers while I put my wife's food away. After that, I went outside with my sister's husband for a smoke and chat. Didn't think anything was wrong, but then I heard shouting from inside. When I went back in, my mom and wife were yelling at each other. My mom had given my niece my wife's food, even though she saw me putting it away. As I walked in, my mom said something mean about my wife's weight and slapped her stomach. Just as I was about to step in and stop them, my wife punched my mom in the face and knocked her down. The whole room went quiet except for my mom crying. I told everyone to leave. They all went and my wife just stood there upset. I told her to leave too. She asked if I was serious, crying. I just said, yes. She packed up her and the baby's things and left. That night, I texted her saying I needed space to think about what happened. She didn't reply. For the next 5 days, I tried calling and texting, but got no response. Then today, 8 days later, she came over with divorce papers and our baby. She said I could spend time with the baby while she packed. Since she's breastfeeding, she suggested we figure out a visitation schedule either at my place or her mom's until the baby can take a bottle. I told her I didn't want this. I just needed time to process everything. She said my need for space made her realize she didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. She felt bad about hitting my mom at first, but me asking her to leave made her see clearly that it was over. She didn't talk to me after that. Now my house feels empty and I'm lost. Was I wrong to ask her to leave after she hit my mom? I just needed some space. Just to clarify, I'm on my wife's side all the way. My mom deserved what she got, and I've cut her out of my life completely. I needed time to process everything that went down. My wife is many things, but violent isn't one of them. This came out of nowhere, and she wouldn't have reacted like that without being provoked. After it all, my mom texted me saying, "See, I told you she was crazy. That fat bitch doesn't belong in our life." I'm pretty sure she was trying to set my wife off on purpose, so no doubt, I'm with my wife 100%. I just needed to figure things out, but my wife took it as me giving up on her. She felt like I wasn't defending her and that I was throwing her and our baby out. And yeah, I guess that's kind of what happened because I knew she had to take the baby when she left. Just to explain why, my dad was really abusive. He beat me, my siblings, and put my mom in the hospital several times. It took years for the police to enforce restraining orders, and he passed away in 2013. Violence really scares me. I get anxious and freeze up around any kind of violence. My wife knows this because she also grew up with a violent stepdad. She gets just as anxious around violence. When my wife punched my mom, it triggered my anxiety and fear. I needed her to leave right then to get the violence away from me. I don't know why I didn't leave myself. I could have. But in the moment, my fear and emotions took over, and I told everyone to leave, including her. My mom did slap my wife first. I guess I saw my wife's punch as worse than the slap at the time. The slap wasn't hard, but my wife winced. She was okay afterward, but my mom's eyebrow was split open and bleeding pretty badly. Wife's reply to her husband's post. I'm devastated that our marriage is ending, and stumbling upon my husband's detailed Reddit post just added to the pain. It's my first time using Reddit, but I felt compelled to share my side of the story, filling in the gaps he left out. For those who missed his post, here's what happened. My husband asked me to leave our home after his mom slapped my stomach right in front of him. In self-defense, I punched her. I truly loved my husband, but his failure to stand up to his mom's behavior was a constant issue. I tried to tolerate it for as long as I could, but I finally hit my breaking point. He consistently brushed off her actions, leaving me feeling unsupported and unheard. I was still recovering from childbirth when my husband's mom slapped my stomach. His description hardly did it justice. The slap echoed loudly in the room, leaving everyone stunned. She had this smug smirk on her face, which my husband didn't notice from his angle. When my husband told me to leave, it was like a punch to the gut. The coldness in his voice and the lack of hesitation made it even more painful. Our baby's cries added to the emotional turmoil of the moment. That night at my mom's house, I was a wreck. All I could do was cry, feeling completely overwhelmed by the whole situation. The weight of the events of that day was too much to bear. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, his mom sent me a text. She threatened to press assault charges against me, filled with insults and warnings to stay away. To add insult to injury, she even added a smiley face at the end, as if mocking the whole situation. I was furious, and it felt like the final slap in the face. At that moment, I realized I couldn't continue being part of such a toxic family. With a heavy heart, I decided to serve my husband with divorce papers. When he received them, he was clearly shocked and immediately tried to convince me to change my mind. Despite his pleas deep down, I knew that divorcing him was the best decision for both me and our baby. I finally told him that he'd let his mother's behavior slide one too many times. I was fed up with him not setting boundaries with her. I'd suggested he set some boundaries before, but he always thought it wasn't necessary. Even during my pregnancy, I told him about the mean names his mom called me when he wasn't around. He'd brush it off, and although he'd tell his mom to stop, she'd just pause briefly before going back to her old ways. When I gave him the divorce papers and was about to leave, he begged me for another chance. He swore he'd cut ties with his mom for good. I told him it was too little too late. I pointed out that he only seemed sorry now because I'd served him divorce papers. I reminded him how many times he'd failed to stand up for me. I loved him so much that I'd let his mom's hurtful comments slide, even though they took a toll on my mental health. I told him to consider it a wake-up call. If I hadn't loved him so much, I would have left him long ago because of his failure to stand up for me and let his mom's snide remarks and behavior continue unchecked. I told him he needed help dealing with his own trauma, especially since he's opened up about his abusive stepdad. It's clear to me that he's still affected by it as an adult, and his mom never got him the help he needed. What baffles me is why he didn't just leave if he needed space instead of being so heartless as to kick both me and our child out. I've been avoiding his texts and calls ever since and am waiting for the divorce hearing. Another thing that concerns me is his mom's attitude towards his niece's weight. She's been living with my husband's sister to save money. I've mentioned to my husband before about how worried I am that his niece weighs 190 pounds at such a young age, and she wasn't that heavy before. On the day of the incident, I was serving a second portion of food for the niece when my husband's mom suddenly grabbed the plate from my hands saying, "I'll do it myself, let me take care of it." When I tried to take the plate back, she snapped at me saying, "I know what to do. You don't know how to properly feed someone as healthy as my grandchild." I was stunned that she thinks her grandchild's weight is normal for her age. It's just another example of how out of touch she is, and it's worrying to think about the influence she has on the younger generation in the family. I reached my breaking point when he kicked both me and our child out of the house. I couldn't tolerate the harassment and abuse any longer. It's crucial for me to do what's best for our child. She shouldn't grow up in a toxic environment where she's exposed to all this drama. My soon-to-be ex-husband keeps suggesting marriage counseling, but I've turned him down. I feel like I've reached my limit with him. Despite his begging and attempts to make me doubt myself, which feels a lot like gaslighting, I just want to move on and leave all this behind. Following my lawyer's advice, I've blocked him, but he's still trying to reach out through his family and siblings. It's becoming exhausting. I want him to respect my decision and give me space until the divorce hearing. What can I do to make sure he understands and leaves me alone?